swig of the tea. He's been sitting outside. Listen, that dude threw up so many times. He said his eyes was burning.
All right, here we go, fellas.
That ain't good.
So, welcome to the conversation. Everybody that's jumping on right now, welcome to the conversation of Chop It Up. Again, this is what we do every Saturday, 3 p.m. Arizona time, 5 o'clock Central time, 6 o'clock Eastern time. Wherever you are, you can catch it. But this is just brothers having conversation, bringing the barbershop conversations online. And so I am Pastor Kevin Crawley. I've got some of my buddies, some of my friends here, and we are digging into stuff. We've had some good conversations, right, fellas?
Yes, sir.
We have.
We
good stuff.
Talked about dealing with this Corona, COVID isolation stuff. We've dealt with. We did Chop It Up, or not Chop It Up, but One Gotta Go.
One gotta go.
Derek again has said that we abandoned Israel Houghton to hell.
No, it was bad. It was bad. All the work he done done for the kingdom. All the work he done done for the kingdom.
Amen. So, and then last week, of course, we paid homage and honored our mothers, honored the women in our lives that are mothers, and just had some conversations about that. So, I kind of warned the fellas this time because it was going to be a little deep. But before I do that, let me let them introduce themselves, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Darian.
Yes, Darian Lewis, down here in Dallas, Texas. Pleasure to be here. I've known Kevin probably the longest. Tori and Derek just had the recent opportunity to make their acquaintance, and these guys are true blue. They're the real deal. So just happy to be here. We've been having some great conversations. Looking forward to some more.
Derek in Oklahoma City, currently sitting on my porch, going live from the front porch. Avid 49er fan, for anybody who cares. Steve Young, Terrell Owens, Ken Norton, Merton Hanks. Come on, like back in the day, mid-90s, killing the game. If anybody cares. Go ahead, Tari, jump in there, save the day.
All right, Tari, Oklahoma City. I've known Derek and Kevin for a while. Just had an opportunity to meet Darian about 4 or 5 weeks ago, how long we've been doing it. Love being here. Since you're going to throw 49ers out there, Cowboys fans all the way, let's go. Hey, we've had some heartache, but that's okay.
You got to be a glutton for pain to be a Cowboy fan.
Say it again?
You got to be a glutton for pain to be a Cowboy fan.
Well, I didn't know. I mean, I was what, 6 or 7 years old? I didn't know any better back then. So, I stick with a team and I'm loyal. So, I'm not going to jump bandwagon and go to another team. Like leaving the Bears and rooting for the Cardinals.
The Cardinals.
But I'm just saying.
I haven't left them. I haven't left them. They left me.
Oh, see? Is that the way you're spinning it now?
Listen.
It's not you. It's me. It's not you.
I'm still a Bears fan. Listen, I've been a diehard Bears fan, diehard Bulls fan through the lean years, not just through the Jordan and the Peyton years, through the lean years. Jordan talking about the Cocaine Express. I'm talking back in the Reggie Theus, Artie Gilmore days. Yeah. All right. So, also, I want to give everybody, I know we all have a lot of things going on. I have a book out right now called Stunted Growth. You can go to my website, kevincrawley.com. Right now, it's completely free. So I'm giving away for free right now just because it's my tithe into you because Darian knows I've been talking about I'm writing books for 10, 15 years. I finally did one, and I'm working on the next one. So go get that book. I know, Darian, you've got a book online right now, too.
Man, I haven't talked about this book in a minute, to just be honest with you. It's about soul ties, how to break bondage of soul ties. Lord, what is the title? This is sad. I was caught off guard, wasn't ready. The Pleasure Prison. Lord, couldn't remember that. Yeah, The Pleasure Prison. How to break free from the bondage of soul ties. So I kind of dig into just what they are, how they affect relationships. A lot of times people don't necessarily even know the signs that these soul ties, these past soul ties are actually keeping them from having the types of relationships that they want. And I go through scripture with it. I go through just everyday scenarios with it. I give you stories as well as statistics. So pretty good book. It's also on my website for free at the moment. DarianLewis.com. You can read it on there. It's also available on Amazon, and you can either download the electronic copy or you can order the physical copy.
Awesome. Good stuff. Awesome. And then Derek, what do you do? I know you've got something going on too.
Yeah, man, I'm currently in the process of crocheting a blanket. So that's been my focus for the last few weeks or so. So that's all I got going, man. Tari, what you got going?
Hey, actually, Takia saw what I had going on the other night. I made some bibimbap, some Korean bibimbap the other night. Hey, Derek, don't be mad at me. She asked me for the recipe, so
oh yeah. It's just a constant slap in the face, man. It's getting disrespectful now.
So the only reason
it's intentional now. It's on purpose.
The only reason is because it was straight from a YouTube dude that I saw, a Korean guy, and I did it exactly the way he did it.
Don't bring Korea in this. This is personal. This is you and me. Don't bring Korea in this.
Hey, it's Korean bibimbap. So that's the only reason she got it so quickly. Other than that, yeah, it probably would have been a minute. My bad. You still love me, bro?
I do.
He just wants to go to heaven, man.
That's it.
Jesus help me. For y'all that don't
Israel
know,
didn't make, but I was one of those who did, right? Israel didn't make it, but I want to make it to heaven.
I've been promising Derek for a few
I feel a Ryan song coming on.
So give myself away.
All right. What's up to everyone that's watching online? I know Raymond's watching online. Forte, I know he's got a book out called Maximizing Mentality. I might actually bring him on one of these times. We can kind of talk through some of that. And so it's good to just jump in today. So I've warned the guys, those of you that are watching, I warned the fellas, this one's going to be a little deep. But I think that as men, we have to deal with this. And that is the spirit and the issue of rejection. I know for myself, just my own personal story, I know I dealt with rejection for a long time. There are still times where I recognize that I respond a certain way because of rejection, right? Mm-hmm. And rejection is not just simply, many times we look at it as the absence of a father and the absence of identity and the absence of things. I was a person who had a father in the home, but still felt rejection. So rejection is not just tied to the father issue or the father wound, although there is where one of its major entry points is. But I want to just kind of dig in today and talk to you guys and talk to those that are watching as we just kind of dig in this thing called rejection, what it is and how, because I think all of us have probably dealt with it in some respects, right? Mm-hmm. And so kind of how have you dealt with it? How have you recognized that that's what was going on? And then how did you kind of begin to make the journey out of it?
Silence all over the room.
I told y'all before we started, man.
Hey, Kev, can repeat that again, man?
So I'll just start. I'll just even go for myself, okay?
But just repeat it again so I know.
Yeah, no, you're good. So rejection is not just a father wound, although that is one of the areas that it typically comes in from. But rejection it's really an assault against your identity. It's an assault against who you are as a person, because you then, and I'll even kind of jump into my story with it, but I wanted to ask you guys, how have you dealt with the rejection? How have you identified rejection in your life? And how have you made the journey out of it? Because I think that we all have, in some areas, dealt with some areas of rejection, whether it's, the thing about rejection is that it really, in my opinion, plays itself in so many different ways, right? It does. Promiscuity, we can tie to rejection. Overeating, tied to rejection. Loneliness, depression, all of those things can find a root in rejection. So I think it's good for us to just kind of, as men, because we don't normally have these conversations as men, right? I'm strong, I don't need nobody, but I think the classic scene that we all probably are familiar with, the Fresh Prince, right? When his dad comes in and is in his life for a moment, and then his dad leaves, and he's like, I don't need him. And then he breaks down. He's like, how come he don't want me?
Yeah.
right? So how do we deal with that as far as men? How do we deal with rejection and move past it?
I think the first thing that we're going to have to do is, my bad, Derek, you got to go?
No, go ahead.
I think the first thing we have to do is identify it. I mean, there was for the longest time where I didn't identify it. I didn't call it for what it was. I sucked it up and didn't let it affect me. So the very first thing is we got to call it out for what it is. We got to recognize it. We got to identify it. We got to say, hey, this is what this is. And that was the first thing for me. I dealt with it a lot in middle school, high school, first few years of college. And I'm a people person. So I remember being on the floor of ORU, and I was in the round on Michael Cardone, so the floors were in a circle. And I literally would like talk with everybody. That was just who I was. And there would be people that would want to come in my room, but they didn't come in my room because someone-so was in the room and they didn't like them. So me being that people pleaser, that person that I didn't like rejection, even if it was with somebody against someone else. That was just me. And so early on, I tried to please a lot of people, and it was rough. Emotionally, it was rough. It was rough mentally. It hurt physically. And then I remember my sophomore year, one of my suite mates, Chip Murdoch, said, and it wasn't anything outwardly profound. It wasn't straight from the gospel. He literally said, you know what, bro? What people think stinks. Worried about what you think about yourself and what God thinks about you. And for some reason, that resonated with me. And that stuck with me ever since then. Now, that doesn't mean I haven't had bouts of the rejection and trying to deal with it since then. But that was the beginning of me identifying that, you know what, I've got an issue with people rejecting me. And I'm candid with it now. I was candid with my wife. She said, well, why do you ask me out? Because I don't want to be rejected. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was literally the reason why. I do not want to be rejected. And so for me, it was coming to grips and identifying what it was. That was the beginning of it for me to work on it and realize, okay, God, who am I in you? What have you created me to be? But first was being a man enough to say that, yeah, I got a problem. Rejection is a huge thing that I deal with. So yeah, that was the beginning step for me. Yeah.
I think rejection, before I go personal, rejection has, from what I've seen, it has two different ways that, and we talked about this a little bit, has two different ways you can respond to it. It can either be active or it can be passive. The passive way typically is withdrawal, loneliness, just kind of abandoning relationships, things of that nature. And then the flip side, the more active side of rejection is that you actually are the rejector. And so rejection typically, one of the ways that it manifests, at least one of the ways that it manifested with me, and I didn't realize it, was that I would sabotage relationships in advance, trying to make sure that they didn't reject me first. Mm-hmm. Or if I felt like someone was getting too close or their desire to get to know me was really, really obvious, then I would put a stop to that. I would find a way to halt that, keep them at arm's distance, if that, or I would do something to sabotage even their viewpoint of me. I would do stuff to make them feel like I wasn't the good guy they thought I was, simply to keep them away, not realizing that was actually rejection, trying to make sure that no one got too close. And so that, a lot of times that typically is even when they're promiscuous, when they, you talked about overeating, you talked about, there's all kinds of just off behaviors. You can go from the gamut, from very light to extreme. People become thieves. They start stealing. They get violent. Even, all of that stemming from this wounded soul that does not know how to be healed. So for me, I definitely could say, there was the absence of a father being in my life played a huge part of rejection for me. Just found out some information. This is going to take a second, but I'll get through it real quick. Just found out, actually have finally found out who my father was. I'm 49 years old, and wow. I found out who he was this year. All right. Know what he looks like. Met family. I've got a sister in Tulsa. We just met this year. She's got 7 kids, so I've got nieces and nephews. Christmas just got real expensive. Wow. Really expensive. But I've got this family, and of course, COVID hit, and so we haven't had a chance to actually connect yet. But I've got this whole side of my family that I've never had this entire life, my entire life, and a lot of the puzzle pieces kind of fell into place once I got, to even just see him. It was like something got settled in me, that had been missing all of this time. And once you have peace, inner peace, you can express that peace to others. You can allow folks to get a little closer to you because you're not anticipating a wounding or a pain from them, if that makes sense. So, like I said, it can go two ways. You can be passive with it, but most times you see that active side. You see that I'm gonna be the rejector first.
Yeah, defense mechanism.
Yeah, I think, man, for I say a long time, something I still struggle with today is it's almost trying to define or trying to understand what is rejection, right? And so it's from a very shallow and platonic understanding, rejection is saying no to anything that I want, right? Anything that I want to do, any way that I want to be perceived, any action that I want to take, no. If I wanted to work at a certain place and they did not hire me, I was rejected. If I asked a girl out and she didn't want to date me, I was rejected. If if I suggested a restaurant and nobody wanted to go there, rejected, right? And so it's like, I think if that's the perspective you take on rejection, then you're setting yourself up for a life of disappointment. However, if you are able to, if you're able to, and I think it's different for everybody. If you're able to kind of adjust your understanding on what is rejection and what is I don't know what the other is. It's like if I wanted to date someone and I didn't fit the mold, they didn't reject me. They just had a different standard or a different expectation or a different, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think this is that understanding has helped me. And one of the things that's helped me understand that is, you look at the story of Joseph, and Joseph, he was confident that I had this dream and the sun and the moon and the hills of Bay were, the bales of hay were bowing to me and I was the dude, right? And then his siblings, his brothers rejected him, right? And then he was picked up by some slave owners and he went to prison, rejected, right? He was the number 2 man in the household, Potiphar's house, rejected, right? It was like, if he looks back on it, he could say that's the hand of God moving me to where I was supposed to be. But in the moment, it feels like rejection. It feels like not only is man rejecting me, but God himself is rejecting me. And when you think of how we move forward and how we live life and how we make decisions out of the fear or the threat of rejection, we can look back and see that it has damaged and polluted and salvaged many relationships and many opportunities. I think of David, while the man of God was there looking for the next king, Dad brought everybody in. And Samuel was like, is this it? And it was like, oh no, we got to know. So if I'm him and I'm like, yo, what everybody doing inside the house? How come y'all didn't call me? Rejection. And then I take that into my kingship. And Saul, rejection, right? I want to build the tabernacle for God. He said, I can't. I shed too much blood. Rejection, right? My daughter got raped by my son. I didn't handle it the way they thought I did. Rejection drove me out of my home. I'm in hiding. Rejection. It's like all these different, I'm dancing in the street praising God and my wife is embarrassed. Rejection. So it's like if we don't if we don't grab this understanding of what is God's plan for our life and what is other people's preferences, and we absorb everything as the world hating us and God hating us, it sets us up for failure every single time, because it puts our standard and our understanding as the right thing. Right. And for me, I'm moving forward. Like I'm saying, once I came into that knowledge, it's like, bro, you were too flawed to be right on everything. And so when it doesn't go your way, it's not rejection, bro. Maybe you're just human. Maybe you don't have a full vision. Like maybe you haven't matured into the fullness of God. Maybe, it's like, and when I take that perspective, and not that I'm not growing in favor with God and with man, and that everything is rejection, then I begin to shape my perception just a little bit. But until I got that, bro, if I made a meatloaf and you said it was too salty, rejection. You know what I'm saying? Like if I recommended a movie and y'all didn't want to see my movie, rejection. If I came out of the bedroom in jeans and a t-shirt and you didn't like my t-shirt, rejection. You don't like my outfit of choice. You know what I'm saying? And this is a hard life to live.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. I mean, I think you bring up a great point as far as even understanding how the plans of God may feel like rejection in the moment. A few years back, I was serving at a church, and I was connected with the pastor, serving the pastor, was in the circle with the pastor, if you will. However, I watched how he interacted with others. And I didn't have that same interaction, right? And it felt like rejection. And there even came a time where he was like, I'm going to hold on to these groups, these three guys. The rest of you, you're going to kind of be another tier down. And I remember writing in that moment, what feels like rejection is sometimes a call to step up and do something different, or do something better. And what I recognized also is that in that moment when I felt rejection, I'm now grateful for that, because I'm a very loyal person. And so if I did not feel like, if I had been received in all in, I might not have made the move to Phoenix. I might not have gone ahead and started my church. I might not have done the things that I'm doing right now, because I would have been accepted in an area, and because I would have felt at home and comfortable there, I would have stayed there and missed my destiny. But sometimes rejection, it really is also how we respond to things, or how we view things. Yeah. If we don't view it from the aspect of, God, what are you doing? Instead of, God, why is this happening, or why is this not happening, or why? If we approach it from, God, what are you doing, and knowing and having confidence, my steps are ordered. If we say that, right? We sing it. So, do you think that God all of a sudden is like, oh, their will is too strong for what I want to do in your life? Their desire for you, or their attention to you is a little different. And now I'm going to say one other thing, and then I'm going to pass it on. But also, when we look at the prodigal son, right? The prodigal son goes off, comes back, the father celebrates him. But the brother takes offense. The brother's like, you love him, you care for him, you throwing a party for him. And the father says this. He says, look, you've always been here. You could have thrown the party anytime you want to. Sometimes I think that we don't take the time to celebrate ourselves. We're looking for other people to celebrate us. We're looking for other people to acknowledge who we are and acknowledge what's in us. And because of that, we feel rejection, when sometimes you just have to throw your own party. Sometimes you have to celebrate your own self and not worry about who's not accepting you, or who else is not acknowledging who you are.
Yeah, Kev, I want to jump in there real quick. And I want to say this too. When you take on this victim mentality, when you take on this rejection mentality, when we think of rejection, it's almost like you were an option and somebody said no to you, right? When oftentimes there are two other options. One, either they said yes to someone else and you wasn't even addressed, or you just were not chosen at all, right? And so sometimes it's like, when you're in this mindset, the fact that they did not choose you is rejection. The fact that they chose someone else, it's just three categories of rejection. One is, I chose somebody else. Two is, I didn't say anything to you. Three, I chose you, I looked at you, and then I said no. And when you're in this victim mentality, in this like I got rejected, it's no matter anything that happens that didn't end up in you being chosen was rejection. If I wasn't the one, if my idea wasn't chosen, then it's not yay for somebody else or God, your will be done. It was like, no. I was rejected. And I think that perspective, it fuels people's, it fuels their decision making and their drive. The Incredibles, the little kid, when the guy was like, nah, man, like this ain't the time. Like, you're a kid.
Right.
That decision, what he took as rejection, fueled his whole life of being a villain.
Yeah.
It's crazy. You see people in the draft, they didn't choose me. And so I got to use my whole career proving to the Miami Dolphins. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, yo, bro, the Miami Dolphins sucks. You didn't want to go there, but they didn't take me number one. And you using your whole, I was the last person in the draft. That's 26 teams that didn't choose me 105 times. And so now you got this big chip. Yeah, I get this big chip on your shoulder. And I was like, nah, bro, somebody else is actually just better than you. They 40 times faster. Their stats was better. It's like, and I think when we take on this victim, this rejection type of mentality, man, it puts us in a hard spot of growth where everything that we use as a metric for success or value is external and not internal, right? It's like, if I can get past all those other people, then I'm winning. If I can make them want me, then I'm winning. But it's like, at the end of the day, man, like, what God has for you is for you. And your gift will make room for you. And all things work to the good for those that are called according to person is that love. You know what I'm saying? Like, if we take that perspective, then it eliminates all the rest. Man, let me go ahead, y'all.
Amen,
dude. Hey,
amen, man.
That was spot on. I mean, I go back to 2016 for me, and that was the same year that Amy had passed, and so I wanted to make a change in my career and go to pursue something that I've always wanted to pursue. And this is the third time for me interviewing for a position in this particular place, and for the third time, I didn't get picked. And if I had been in a point to where I would have been maybe 10, 15 years before that, I have no idea how that would have affected me. I probably would have been so upset, left Dell, nobody likes me, why don't they want me? What am I not doing right? But at that point, and the reason I'm thinking about this from what you said, Kevin, it caused me to refocus my energy elsewhere. I'm like, obviously, God, okay, if this is not where you want me to be, then where am I supposed to be? I said, obviously, this is not the right. I keep hitting on the same door that you ain't opening. All right, so it's time for me to stop doing that. So instead of me looking at it as rejection, and to be candid, I didn't like it. I mean, of course, I felt some time away. I'm not going to say that I wasn't upset. I was, but then when I sat back, self-reflected, looked at the big picture, and then what I ultimately did say, okay, God, if this is not what you want for me, then maybe I need to redirect myself elsewhere. Then a year and a half later, this opportunity literally just comes out of the blue, and I was able to walk into it. And now I'm in the best position that I've ever been at Dell that I absolutely love. It's my niche. I'm in training. I get to mentor people, train people, pour into people's lives the way that I can because Dell allows me to. And so because of that, I was able to refocus my energy and focus on what God really wanted me to do and then move into that area. And now I'm the happiest I've ever been in my 13 years there because this is where I was supposed to be. So being able, just like you both said, Derek, and I'm sure all of you have said, being able to understand and realize that it's not because they didn't like you. Maybe there wasn't your preference. If she didn't want to go out with you, maybe you weren't what was right for her.
Because you suck. Right.
Say it again?
I said it ain't because you suck. It was just like, it wasn't a match. It wasn't a match, didn't it?
Exactly. I mean, there could have been a whole lot of other people that I picked, but it wasn't a match for me. But it doesn't mean that they disliked you and you were terrible, you were horrible. It's just because, you know what? Go for it. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
And now looking back, I'm glad.
Boy, who you telling, man? Hindsight.
Now I'm like, thank you.
Hallelujah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, and you know what? That's funny because I look back now and I look at that area now and that position, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm glad I didn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
Because guess what? I would be miserable. I would not be happy. I would not be the way I am right now, loving what I do, having no problem. Oh, I get to go to work today. That's literally what I say. I get to go do my job today. If that would have happened, I would have been miserable. And I know that looking back now. So you're right, Kev.
Yeah, I definitely want to jump in on that. Something that actually all of you have hit on. Derek, I think, hit it on the most. If rejection is a part of your self-identity, you're going to see every challenge as rejection. You're just not even going to be able to avoid it. Anytime you are rebutted, you receive a no, a negative response, or somebody just treats you in a way that you didn't want to be treated, whatever that is, you will take that, you automatically take that person.
Didn't get my order right.
Yeah,
everything.
Because you subconsciously have already accepted the fact that I'm supposed to be rejected. Right. This is a part of who I am. This is a part of my DNA. Whether we realize that we're thinking that way or not. Because I think about the examples that Derek brought up in the Word, but I also think about Jesus. How often he was rejected. It never deterred him.
Ever.
It never deterred him. Paul the same way. How often he was rejected. They were never deterred from what they knew they needed to get done. Now the Bible doesn't really go into the depths of how they felt about it, but at the end of the day, their behavior didn't shift. Their love never changed. Their efforts, their level of effort and outreach never shifted. And so rejection really boils down to, how do I receive the no? At the end of the day, I was also thinking about the movie Hitch. Hitch has a statement. Will Smith makes a statement when he's talking to, I can't remember the girl's name, but when he's talking to her, to flirt with her, whatever. And then she asked the question, so what happens if we don't get together? Or what happens if we don't go out? And he makes this statement that is, just actually really helped me, to just be honest with you, when I first heard it. And he basically said, we'll both be fine. We'll move on with our lives and live happily ever after. Good to meet you. And walks out. In other words, hey, I would love the opportunity to get to know you, but if this is something you don't want, you're going to have a great life. I'm going to have a great life, and we're going to move on,
Right.
And I was like, duh. And I've literally used variations of that statement in various scenarios, It's
and
just been like, oh, hey, if this ain't it, this ain't the move, it ain't the move. It's all good. Right. You're going to do great. I'm gonna do great. No one's gonna die or suffer needlessly if this whatever doesn't come together. So yeah, I think it really boils down to how have I identified, and typically rejection as an identification has to start pretty darn early. It's got to start somewhere in childhood. You've got to be convinced you're not enough. I think that's really where it begins, whether it's you don't have your parents in the home, whether it's abusive or neglectful treatment, whatever that looks like, because the people that I've noticed that have some of the strongest self-esteem, when I dig into their childhood, man, they were solid. Mom and dad was solid, home life was solid. They may not have been rich, they may have actually been poor. But the love was solid, and they were always convinced that everything was going to be okay. They didn't know any different. They didn't know I can think of a couple of friends now. They literally said to me, I didn't know I was poor. I didn't know what poverty was. I didn't know we didn't have anything because everything that we had was, we were always made to believe that we were enough. And so our creativity was encouraged, get outside and explore. You don't necessarily have to have all X, Y, Z in order to have a good life. And it wasn't until later on that they realized, oh, we didn't have Jack. So that to me, that's really where it begins. And also, if you can deal with that identity issue, because we're gonna be rejected. The action of rejection is going to happen.
No, it's going to happen.
It's going to happen. Application's gonna be turned down. You're not gonna get the job. You're not gonna get the girl. You're not gonna get the loan. You're not gonna get the position, whatever it is. Someone's not gonna pick you for their team. Someone's not gonna pick you for their 12. Someone's not gonna hire you to be there. Whatever. That's going to happen. So how do we respond to that? How do we take that? As long as we don't take it personal, we get to the point where it's not personal. Even if it is personal, it ain't personal.
Right. I think a couple of things in there is one. I think that we have to recognize that when we're even talking about this whole thing of rejection and how they value me, what have you, I think part of it, the issue also is not recognizing your own uniqueness. Because sometimes the rejection happens because you are different, because you are special, because you do have something that the others don't have, right? I grew up in an environment where I had two lives going on. Okay. My parents moved out to a suburb called Maywood outside of Chicago because that's where our church was. That's where everybody was. We call Maywood the real hood. Anybody who's from Maywood knows Maywood it's a suburb, but it ain't a suburb. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that's where I grew up. But then every day for school, I would go to the north side of Chicago to an area called the Gold Coast. And I would go to school around folks who, for staying sober for 6 months, would get BMWs and Mercedes. Okay. Yeah,
wow.
That's a whole other thing. So I'm living two different worlds in some respects. And so therefore, because I don't necessarily have this over here in Gold Coast, I feel some rejection. And then because I'm not able to connect with people on this level around my neighborhood, I'm also feeling rejection. So sometimes rejection happens because we don't embrace our own uniqueness. We don't embrace our authentic self. And because of that, then because they didn't accept me, I now reject myself and now try to do other things to fit in with them, because I don't recognize that the rejection has little to do with their opinion of me. It has more to do with the fact that they have their opinion of themselves in light of me.
Yeah.
That's
good.
That's good.
Good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you think about the going to Kev talking about living at two lives. I think growing up, and then just thinking right now as you guys are talking, growing up, being told that you're perfect and that you're awesome, and always hearing yes and never hearing no or rarely hearing no. I think that also sets you up for some disappointment and failure as well. It's a very unique balance between building up self-efficacy and self-value and self-esteem in a child, and then making them think they're the best thing since sliced bread. You know what I'm saying? Like it's this parenting thing, it's got some balance to it, right? I remember my dad used to tell me sometimes, he said, I didn't really have a good reason for saying no, but I knew you heard too many yeses in a row. Right? Yeah. I didn't really have a real reason for saying no, but you just got too many yeses. You know what I'm saying? Like, you had made the team and came home with straight A's, and your room was clean, and you was hanging out with your friends, and you was riding your bike. And can you go to the corner store? No. Why not, Dad? I done did everything I was supposed to do. Nah, man. You've been doing too much. You've been out here in these streets. And I think that sets you up as an adult for when you've done everything you were supposed to do and you still get a no, that it's not you. You know what I'm saying? Like you look at, I mean, we could track this through the Bible. I know we keep coming back to it. We are Bible people, but it's like how many times God had did all these great things, and then it gets to this point where the children of Israel they just so used to just skating through on grace, and they do something, and God is like, see, now I got to open the earth and swallow 20,000 of y'all. Like, it's like you force my hand. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, you want quail? Well, you gonna get quail till it come out your nose. How about that? It's like this concept of like you have to stay. This balance and this self-awareness allows you to appreciate and value yeses, and then move on from no's. Like there's something about being able to take a no like a champ, to be able to take an L like a champ, to be able to take a setback, a perceived setback like a champ. You know what I'm saying? Like if your kids do something that's against what you taught them, like instead of saying you a bad kid, it's a learning opportunity. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's the same for us. And so again, I mean, Darren, you hit this on the head, man. You talk about this concept of it has to start somewhere. Like, where did it start? And then if you let it go too far, too long, unchecked, and then it intertwines itself in your DNA, in your personality, and your characteristics, and you begin to see everything as a possible loss and a possible failure and a possible rejection, instead of seeing it as a learning opportunity. Who's the guy? I think it was Thomas Edison, said, I didn't fail 10,000 times. I failed, or I didn't, it was something about he was saying, I just found 9,999 ways.
999 ways where it didn't work.
Yeah. He like, I'm learning. I don't lose, I learn. Right? That's this concept of us. And so I don't necessarily know that. I feel like sometimes we give the enemy too much credit. Right? He out to get me. He out, and I was like, nah, bro. Like, that wasn't for you.
Didn't work out. Yeah.
That wasn't for you. That wasn't the enemy raising up a standard against you. And he do that sometimes, but not all the time. Like, that was just God that's saying, hey man, not that one. Like, I got something better for you. Like, I'm taking this bird's eye view. Why? Because my ways are hiding your ways, and my thoughts are hiding your thoughts. And I stand at the beginning and the end. In fact, I'm the author and the finisher of the. You know what I'm saying? It's like when we give ourselves over to that, it's like, all right, well,
I give myself away.
Yo, you said something there that made me think of something I learned probably about 10 years ago, and actually came from Pastor Steve. And,
come on, Pastor Steve.
And it was actually something that was applied to the relationship with Amy and I. Because I realized that I got to a point to where everything just affected me. I was getting upset about everything, and I'm like, why am I getting upset? And it felt like I was offended, or I was upset, or I was rejected. And he told me, and you can apply this to rejection. You can apply it to everything. Your relationship doesn't really matter. He said, I want you to do one thing. He said, it's 5 letters. I want you to do one thing before you think about it, before you react, before you let it affect you, before you do anything. I said, all right, well, what's that? He said, pause.
Okay.
I said, okay. He says, because when you pause before you react, step back. And this is what I've been saying this for like 20 years. I tell the Ashley all the time, step back, take a look at the big picture, and just think about it. You get emotionally invested in whatever happened before you make a decision based on it, before you react and start getting all up in your feelings. Pause, think about it.
Yeah.
Was this really something that was against me, or was it just a decision? Is this really something that I need to get upset about, or feel rejected about, or be offended by? Am I stepping back, taking a look at the big picture, and realize, you know what? That's just life. That's just the decision. It just happened. So now I can move on, or now I can have a great conversation with my wife, or my kid, or my coworker, or my brother, it doesn't really matter. Pause. Before you jump, before you leap, before you react, before you allow that thought of rejection within you, just think about it. Pause.
I'm gonna tell you, Tori, that right there, that was my mechanism when I began to realize that I was dealing with rejection. Because can I even say in this social media world, if you're dealing with rejection, you start seeing subtweets in everything.
Everything.
You start to think that everybody is talking about it.
Everything, yes.
And you start to be, people, it's like it has nothing to do with you.
Right.
But because you are feeling rejection, you feel like that applies to me. And then what I also found for me was I found that there were things that I didn't want to be involved in, but because somebody else I saw was involved in it, I felt rejection like, well, why didn't they ask me? Well, hold on. I didn't want to do it anyway.
Right.
So why am I getting upset?
Right. Exactly.
But you got to give me the opportunity to say no. You got to give me the opportunity to say no.
But
I have said that. Now I have definitely said that. If my wife and my stepson have food and they didn't ask me that I want something, knowing that I can't eat what they eat,
Right.
Right.
And I'm just like, for real, y'all, for real. They look at me like, what is your problem? I said, I just want to be able to say no. I just want to be able to say no, I'm good.
Yeah. All right, you really think you want to go skydiving? Well, no. At least give me the answer to try to say no. Yeah. Right though, it's the truth. We do that so much, knowing good and well that we don't want any part of it, but we bring that rejection upon ourselves.
Right. Yeah. So we're gonna wrap it up because this has been a good conversation, and
is it an hour already?
Oh, it's almost now. It's almost now. Oh, yeah, wow. we got in there. We got in there, right? But yeah, it's I think that when we talk about this thing, rejection, I think every one of us and those that are watching, all of us as men, grown men, we're in our 30s and 40s. So it's not like this is just something that happened in middle school and we're just in high school trying to navigate this. No, some of this is wounds that we have had for a while. And I think that for us as men, it is important because, and we'll just jump back into this for just a moment, but I think the important thing that us as men with children have to take care of is making sure that we don't pass that on to our kids.
Exactly.
Right? We don't pass it on, and so I've worked with my son, and my son, there's some other challenges, right? But with my son, I've tried to make sure that he knows that he is loved, that he is respected, that I'm talking to him as a growing young man and not a boy.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that part of the issue is, for myself, part of the issue with me and my dad was that I was always talked to as a boy and not an emerging young man. And so therefore I did not have the opportunity to feel like I could make decisions and do things and establish my own value in work. And so I think as parents, as fathers especially, we have to make sure that we protect the self-esteem of our kids. Right?
That's good.
I agree with that. Definitely.
Especially in this social media age, man, where everybody is showing highlights of their best life, and you get 30-second clips of a 24-hour day.
Right.
And my daughter being 14, about to be 15, just body image and dating and it's just, man, it's like, how do you build them? How do you build them up? How do you fortify their confidence and their faith? Yeah. And take a no, like that's, man, it's such an invaluable lesson. I remember I sat down with a pastor last year after my dad passed, and I said, "Hey, man, just want to let you know I got a spot open up in my life for a dad if you want it." And he kind of chuckled, and I was like, "I'm dead serious." And he was like, "Well, thanks for the offer." Crickets. Yeah. A month go by, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, nothing. 6 months, 7 months, a year go by, nothing. And you better believe your boy was just like fighting, right? Because what does rejection do? Rejection, it creates a narrative where you are the victim. That's what that's what rejection does. This is why he didn't do it, because you're not worthy, and you're not, and you're not, and you're not, and you're not. And then I stepped back. I was sitting there. I was just thinking, this a couple months ago, I stepped back and I was like, this man got a whole family. He got a whole staff. He got a whole church. How arrogant of you to be like, yo, want to be my dad? It's like, and then get mad when he like, you know what? I got grandkids and kids and a whole pastoral staff. You know what? Come on in, join them. Like, who am I? And I think I can take that scenario and apply it to anything where I create this narrative where I'm the victim. And when that happens, I think it's muddy water. It's just a thick process to come out of, because even when you're coming out of it and you get another no, it just pushes you back down. And I think that's something that people just have to deal with, man. In relationships and friendships, I have to take Tyree's yes as a yes and his no as a no. Right. And I have to take it at that and trust that he is my friend and that I'm not the villain, that he's not the villain, that I'm not the victim. Like, it's just because it's all in here. It's just a hard thing to combat when it's not out here. It's all in here. And you're just circling those thoughts and they create momentum inside your head. Like it's such a necessary topic. Go ahead, Kev. So my bad.
Yeah. I'm gonna just say one thing real quick, and then I'm gonna let you guys have your final statements. But even because part of this also, especially in the Christian world, in the church world, when we talk about spiritual father, right? And there is a huge thing of I gotta have my spiritual father. I gotta find my spiritual father, and especially for those of us that move in ministry and what have you, there is that whole thing. But what I had to recognize was one, not every person that I look to as a spiritual father is capable of fathering. Right? Not everyone is capable of fathering. Exactly. So I may be upset that this person didn't become a spiritual father to me, when actually the issue is that maybe they weren't qualified to be my spiritual father. Right? So I think that this whole rejection thing can really take itself in so many different ways. But I think this has been a great conversation for us to just begin to dig in and say, okay, what are some of the signs of it? What are some of the issues regarding it? And how do we move out of it? Because it is, I hate to say it this way, but it is all in your head. It is all in our head. It really is your mental approach and response and your emotional response to life. All right. So I'm gonna let you guys have your final statements, and then we'll close it up for this week for Chop It Up.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and close and finish it out. I know that, we're talking about Father, since coming to Father's Day in a few weeks, and I know it's just us guys, and we're talking about things that guys need to talk about. This also applies to women, because I noticed that we had some women that were watching also. But as guys, we need to make sure that we have someone to bounce this stuff off of.
Yeah.
Because I think our biggest failure is not having that person. Because we let pride stick in, or I'm man enough, I stand on my own, or I don't need anybody. We have to have that person. You have to. Because if you don't, you're not going to talk to your wife about it. God knows you're not going to talk to your kids about it. And so it's just going to sit there internally and fester and grow and just take roots. Yeah. And when you try to pull it out when it needs to, it's already dug a hole. It's already deep. So we have to make sure, we have to make the conscious effort. We have to be deliberate in having that person that we can go to, talk to, be accountable. And I know people don't like the word accountable, but you know what I mean. It's you gotta have that. You gotta have that person that knows you and can take you for who you are. We talked about the treasure last week in the field and finding that treasure, that parable of that, but realizing that the dude just didn't buy that one area. He bought the whole field. He bought the weeds, the rocks, the trash. He bought everything for that one treasure. So we got to find that person who will be able to take us to who we are, that we can be vulnerable to, and that will speak into our lives when we've screwed up, when we're hurting, when we need to be celebrated, whatever it is, but we can't do it alone. Right. So that's my thing that I close with. Find that person. You have to. And let them speak into your life, whether you want to hear it or not. But you have to have that person to be able to speak that stuff, to say it. This is what's bothering me. This is what I'm dealing with, and I need some help with it. If we don't have that person, we're going to fail.
Good stuff. Good stuff. My final statement would be, well, number one, I think we're going to have to revisit this. May not be anytime soon, but we definitely need to revisit this. This is a pretty packed subject. Like, it's almost like let's talk about love. Just
right.
We could be there for weeks. But I would say, one of the things that I would love for us to actually deal with, which I feel like is a parallel to rejection, is how do you deal with pain? Because how you manage pain will tie directly into those rejection feelings, that rejection matrix, if you will. How you feel about yourself, how you feel about how you expect or interpret others' interactions with you. Have you grown up enough to realize that some of this is just life? It's not an attack,
right?
And then there's legitimate pains that happen in life. There's things to go through, man, that just It's not fair.
Right.
It's asked for. It wasn't deserved, but it landed on your doorstep, and you have the choice as to whether to break down or to rise up. And especially for men, I think a lot of men have these bags of pain, unprocessed pain, that cause them to make bad choices. I can say that for myself. I've made some horrible choices because of unprocessed pain that were due to this rejection mindset that I didn't even know I was dealing with. I didn't even realize it was driving me. Right. And then you add pain on top of that, emotional pain on top of that. Oh yeah, I'm the Energizer Bunny for bag. Right. So hopefully at some point we'll be able to deal with that as well.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I think something that goes maybe not parallel to rejection, but maybe on the other side of the spectrum is acceptance. I think that's kind of what that's what they want. And when they don't receive that, they perceive it as rejection, right? And so this concept of being accepted, we could expound and expand into being valued, appreciated, being seen, being understood, right? These are all part of this acceptance thing. Validated, I think when we're talking about rejection, you have to talk about acceptance. So what does acceptance look like into the brotherhood? What does acceptance look like into the kingdom of God? What does acceptance look like into a marriage? Oh my God. Like when you think about what does that look like?
Boy, that's a whole other hour right there.
I'm saying you got, that's something that you have to talk about. It's like, I mean, I think it's very important, man. So I think we can revisit this as much as y'all want to. I mean, I got free therapy today, man.
Yeah. Good topic, man.
So that's huge. That's huge, brother.
Yes.
We don't talk about that enough. What does that look like?
We don't.
How do we do it?
Exactly.
How do we know when it's in our life? You know? Because if somebody has a hard conversation with me, I don't realize they're actually accepting me for who I am, but they're not accepting where I am. Definitely. Yeah, that's good.
All right. Well, before we jump into this for a whole nother hour and 3 days. Listen, I appreciate you fellas. I appreciate everybody that's in. Looking at some of the comments, I know Raymond said great topic of conversation. I had Jason say thank you. So we've had a lot of good talk about this.
Your dog's preaching.
Say what now?
Your dog is preaching.
Yeah, my little dog, he is preaching, and he needs to go out to the desert back here. All right, but it also just as just kind of a heads up, I'm actually going to start taking some of these and chopping them up into a podcast. So we're going to see if we can help as many people as we can, just to kind of. I think this has been a great topic, and so I've made some mental notes, and I'll probably go back and watch it again just for some other topics that we can pull out of this, because I think this has been helpful, especially for men. And so if you're watching this, if you're still on here right now watching this, we appreciate you tuning in, watching, as we just chop it up and have conversations that men want to have and need to have. All right?
Yeah.
So appreciate you guys. Have a great week. Chop it up again every Saturday, 3 o'clock Arizona time. Figure it out for your time zone. Amen.
I'll be good.
Right.